A champion fell in 5 seconds. It was late at night. Loud music, flashing lights, glasses raised. Father's Day approaching. No one there imagined that, in a matter of seconds, one of the biggest names in world jiu-jitsu would fall to the ground, struck by a single shot, a gunshot to the head, and Brazil would wake up to the news. Leandro Lo was dead. But this story doesn't begin with the shot. It begins with something much smaller. Ego, provocation, wounded masculinity, and a gun in the wrong place. August 7th, 2022's Clube Sirio, São Paulo. A private event with a pagode concert. Sophisticated setting, select crowd. Nothing there indicated that the night would end in tragedy. Leandro Pereira do Nascimento, 33 years old, the champion of champions, the man who dominated jiu-jitsu for more than a decade, the athlete who represented Brazil to the world. He wasn't there to fight. According to friends, he didn't even drink that night. He had a competition in the coming days. He was focused. He was calm. He was happy. On the other side of the room, Henrique Otávio Oliveira Veloso, military police lieutenant, also a martial arts practitioner, also a regular in that type of environment, also armed. And this is where the discomfort begins. Because there is one question that runs through this entire story. What is a gun doing inside a concert venue? The gun was legal, registered, permitted. But does permitted mean prudent? The law authorizes it. But does the situation recommend it? An environment with alcohol, loud music, testosterone, provocation, and a gun at someone's waist. A dangerous mix. Very dangerous. According to reports, there had been a first encounter months earlier. A nightclub called Morale. A misunderstanding, pulling rank, an argument. Nothing violent, but something lingered in the air. The kind of energy that doesn't get forgotten. And months later, the two meet again. Coincidence? Fate? Or just two men who frequented the same places? That's for the jury to decide. That early morning at Clube Sirio, each group was in its own corner. Leandro with friends, Henrique with his. Until, close to 5 a.m., their paths crossed. And this is where the versions begin. Because this story has two narratives, and what happened in those seconds defines everything. Defense version. Henrique went to the bathroom. On his way back, he approached the stage. He was allegedly confronted. An argument. Leandro allegedly applied a takedown known as a double leg. Henrique fell, momentarily disoriented. When he got up, Leandro allegedly advanced again. He then draws his weapon and fires. Self-defense, fear, instinct, survival. Prosecution version. Henrique allegedly provoked, touched the table, grabbed a bottle that wasn't his. Tension in the air. Leandro applies the takedown to end the situation. Henrique steps away, walks a few meters, comes back, draws his gun, and fires. Not in immediate reaction, but after a few seconds. Enough time to think, enough time to decide, enough time to choose. And this is where the difference lies. Reaction or decision. There was a single shot, to the head. Leandro remained standing for a few seconds. Then, he fell. Witnesses claim Henrique even kicked the body. He says he doesn't remember. Not remembering is not the same as not doing it. And that detail weighs heavily. Very heavily. But perhaps the most disturbing point comes afterward. Henrique leaves. He does not immediately call the police. He does not provide assistance. He does not remain at the scene. He leaves, gets a taxi, goes to another establishment, buys drinks, goes to a motel. Only later does he turn himself in. And here another question arises. Does someone who acts in self-defense run or stay to explain? The answer is not simple, but it echoes. Leandro died on the way to the hospital, 33 years old, 10-time world champion. Brilliant career, family shattered, a legacy interrupted in seconds. Now let's look at something even deeper. This story is not just about two men. It's about decisions. It's about impulses. It's about the power of a gun. Because imagine that same fight, without a gun. What would the outcome have been? An argument? A scuffle? Security breaking it up? Maybe a black eye. Maybe a lawsuit. But not a funeral. The presence of a gun changes everything. It turns seconds into eternity. It turns ego into fatality. It turns error into irreversible. And that's the part that hurts the most. Because what happened there was not a war. It was not an ambush. It was not an armed confrontation between criminals. It was an argument that spiraled out of control and met a gun. Henrique claims he feared for his life, that his gun could have been taken, that he reacted to survive. Leandro can no longer tell his version, and that always creates imbalance, because only one side speaks. The other became silence. The trial was postponed twice. Years have passed, and the family waits. The defense prepares technical arguments. The prosecution builds a narrative of conscious decision, and Brazil watches, divided. But this story is even bigger, because it forces us to face something uncomfortable. How far does individual responsibility go? How far does the psychological preparation of someone who carries a gun go? Where is the line between defense and excess? And most importantly, what could have been avoided? Coming up, we're going to dive into the personalities of both men, into the lieutenant's past, into Leandro's public image, and into the question no one wants to ask. Was this crime the result of a second, or of something that had been building? Ego, the uniform, and the split second that decides everything. There is a brutal difference between an accident and a choice. And this entire trial revolves around that. Was it an inevitable impulse or a conscious decision? But before answering that, we need to look at the two men involved, because no crime happens in a vacuum. It happens between histories. Leandro Lo was not just an athlete, he was a reference. 10-time world champion, winner on the biggest stages in jiu-jitsu, respected by opponents, admired by students, a name that carried weight in the sport. But outside the mat, he was an ordinary man. He went to parties, went out with friends, had a social life. And yes, like any young, strong, competitive man, he also had a strong personality. He was not someone who easily backed down. And that matters, because that early morning, two similar profiles met. On the other side was Henrique, military police lieutenant, trained, used to command, used to automatic respect because of the uniform, also a fighter, also used to winning physical confrontations. Two men used to dominating their own space. Put that in an environment with alcohol, loud music, stares, subtle provocations. It's emotional gunpowder. There is a point that keeps resurfacing in this case. Henrique had a prior history of a fight in a nightclub years earlier, an argument in another club, disrespecting an officer, physical conflict. That does not automatically condemn him, but it builds a behavioral pattern. Because when similar episodes repeat in similar contexts, they stop being coincidence and start being trait. Now let's enter the fraction of seconds that divides everything. When Leandro applied the takedown, no one denies the takedown happened. The double leg happened. The question is, what happened next? According to Henrique, he wakes up disoriented, fears his gun will be taken, sees Leandro advancing again, reacts. According to the prosecution, he steps away, regains control, comes back, shoots. The difference between these versions may be 5 seconds, but 5 seconds, legally, are an abyss. Because 5 seconds can mean instinct or intent. There is a very strong legal concept here. Self-defense requires immediacy of aggression. In other words, the danger must be immediate. If there was room to step back, breathe, and decide, it is no longer defense, it is choice, and the jury will focus exactly on that. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine you take a hit, you fall, you get up, your heart is racing, your adrenaline is at its peak, your vision is blurred, you are angry, humiliated, with dozens of people watching. You are a police officer, you carry a gun, you are armed. What goes through your head? Fear? Anger? Ego? Survival? A mix of everything? It's in that mix that irreversible decisions happen. But there is another detail. After the shot, the post-crime behavior says a lot. Henrique did not remain at the scene. He did not immediately call for police backup. He did not stay to provide assistance. He left. And that movement weighs psychologically, because someone who acts purely in defense usually stays. Explains. Hands over the weapon. Calls for help. Staying or fleeing changes perception, even if legally it does not define guilt by itself. And there is still the human factor. Leandro was unarmed. Yes, he was a fighter. Yes, he knew how to immobilize. But he did not have a firearm. That creates disproportion. And disproportion is a key word in cases like this. Was the reaction proportional to the threat, or was it excessive? There is also the symbolic impact. A world champion fighter dying from a gunshot. It's almost ironic. A man trained to dominate hand-to-hand combat, defeated by something that requires no technique, just pulling a trigger. That shifts the debate, because it makes the gun the true protagonist. And there's a point few people mention. If Henrique had not been armed, would he have been killed? Probably not. Would they have fought? Maybe. Would security have intervened? Probably. The night would have ended in an argument, but not in a wake. That hypothesis is impossible to ignore. Now let's talk about the word that runs through everything. Ego, masculinity, pride. Two young men, strong, used to winning, neither wanting to back down, neither wanting to seem weak. When pride steps in, rationality steps out. And if you add a gun to that, the result can be fatal. The trial will revolve around technical evidence, distance of the shot, angle, time between the fall and the gunshot, conflicting testimonies. But deep down, what the jury will decide is something simpler. Was it legitimate fear or excess? Meanwhile, Leandro's family waits. Waiting for trial means reliving the pain constantly. It means watching the defense say he provoked, hearing insinuations about his personality, having to defend someone who can no longer speak. That is devastating. And Henrique waits too, waiting to know if his life as a police officer is over, if he will be convicted of qualified homicide, if his version will be accepted, if that second will define the rest of his existence. But there is a truth independent of the court. A man died because of an argument at a party in seconds, and that should never be normalized. In the next part, we will dive into the social impact, the discussion about guns in party environments, the emotional responsibility of those who carry lethal power, and what this case reveals about us as a society. Because this story is not just about two men, it is about the line between control and explosion, when the trigger speaks louder than reason. There is a question that won't leave your mind after hearing everything about this case. How much is a second worth? Because that's what it was. A second. A finger pressing a trigger. And an entire life interrupted. The Leandro Lo case is not just about a dead athlete. It's not just about a police officer who shot. It's about power. Because carrying a gun is carrying power. It's carrying the final decision on your hip. It's having the ability to turn an argument into fatality. And that requires something enormous. Absolute emotional control. There is a point that few people state clearly. Whoever carries a gun cannot afford to lose control. Ever. Not for a second. Not out of pride. Not out of provocation. Not out of humiliation. Because when you are armed, your responsibility is greater than everyone else's in that environment. And there, in that hall, only one person had a gun. Many people ask, but what if he was really afraid? That is a fair question. Fear can be real. The sense of threat can be legitimate. But there is a difference between feeling fear and reacting with lethality. Because the use of a firearm is the last resort, not the first, not the emotional one. It is the extreme, and the extreme demands certainty. Now let's look at another angle. Leandro was a professional fighter. Yes, he knew how to immobilize. He knew how to take down. He knew how to dominate. But he was unarmed. And here comes the issue of proportionality. If someone comes at you with their hands, do you respond with a gunshot? That is the central debate. Because criminal law works with proportionality. Reacting is allowed, exaggerating is not. There is also an important psychological factor: public humiliation. Being taken down in the middle of a party, in front of dozens of people, being a police officer, being a man, being someone used to commanding respect, that affects the ego, and wounded ego is dangerous fuel. The question that echoes is, was it fear of death or fear of humiliation? That line is very thin. After the shot came silence. Leandro fell, friends screaming, chaos. And at that moment, there was no longer an argument, only desperation. And then comes the moment that defines post-crime character. Enrique leaves, does not remain, does not try to help, does not turn himself in right there. He leaves. And that changes public perception. Because someone who acts in defense tends to stay. Someone who knows they went too far tends to distance themselves. But public perception is not a sentence. The court decides. Meanwhile, Leandro's family lives another kind of prison. The prison of what if. What if he hadn't gone? What if he had ignored it? What if security had arrived sooner? What if there had been no gun? What if that second had been different? Those questions never have answers, and they hurt every single day. Enrique also lives in limbo, expelled, reinstated, awaiting jury. Years of uncertainty, career suspended in midair, reputation marked, an entire life defined by 5 seconds. Because that's what happens when extreme decisions are made. They don't end when the shot ends. They keep echoing for decades. But there is something bigger here. This case forces society to look at an uncomfortable point. Are we emotionally prepared to carry lethal power? Is technical training enough? Does psychological training keep up? Because it's not enough to know how to shoot. You have to know when not to shoot. And that is much harder. Now let me ask you a direct question. If you had been at that party, unarmed, do you think you would have died? Probably not. Maybe you would have fought. Maybe you would have been separated. Maybe you would have gone home angry, but alive. The gun changed the ending, and that is undeniable. There is also the narrative of conflict construction. Some point out that Leandro had a strong personality, that he didn't back down, that he could be explosive. But a strong personality is not a death sentence. Provocation is not capital punishment, and that needs to be remembered. The court will decide whether it was qualified homicide, whether there was a trivial motive, whether there was a means that made defense difficult, or whether it was self-defense. But regardless of the sentence, there is a truth no one can erase. A trivial argument turned into tragedy, and it could have been avoided. Perhaps the greatest lesson of this story is this: when two egos clash, someone has to step back. Because when no one steps back, fate may decide for you, and sometimes it decides with a bullet. Leandro Lo left a legacy in the sport: students, titles, history. Enrique Veloso left an open debate about responsibility, use of force, limits, ego. Both will have their names forever linked to that early morning. One as victim, the other as perpetrator. And Brazil continues to await the final verdict. If this story moved you, share it. Because talking about it is talking about prevention. It's talking about emotional control. It's talking about the weight of carrying a gun. Subscribe to the channel. Because here we don't turn tragedy into spectacle. We turn it into reflection. And in the next video, you will see another case that proves that sometimes the difference between life and death fits into a single second. See you there. And until then, never underestimate the power of an impulsive decision.